G'day everyone. This is Rangadad, not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. And yes, in summary, I think we're actually going to have a little bounce here, and I think it's going to wreck a lot of people. Um, Basically, because of this, every time you get like just a stupid amount of shorts or puts in the system, it's very hard for the market to actually drop. You can see just how many puts are in the system lately. Like everyone's shorting this market, and I guess a lot of people use puts to hedge long positions and stuff now, particularly in hedge funds. But I just looking at this, you think, well, okay, how can we actually drop from there with that many puts in the system? Wall Street doesn't typically like to pay these out. Um, but at the same time, if you're looking at it without this huge volume here, it kind of did happen in late 2007 as well. And then obviously we saw the top around then. So yeah, I mean, people are piling in. We've been dipping for a little bit. I suspect it might, well, I actually suspect it'll bounce here, but I do also think that it will be a dead cat bounce, similar to what happened over here in 2007. And credit to FX Evolution for showing that one. Not sure who they got it off, but it's an interesting chart. Basically, the equal weight Qs looks like it's bounced off this trend line, which is a pretty decent one. Could we come further, slip through that level? Yes, but I actually like the volume and the I guess the intensity with which they bought up the low off the 200 EMA as well. Wonder, I'll just change that to an SMA for a second. Yeah, same deal. No major difference there. In fact, none at all at this point. So stochastic momentum is in a good position for a bounce. It's not confirming a bounce here yet. I guess the thing I'm looking at too is just this vector candle up here. Good level for a bounce. We bounced off this twice now. Plus the 200 EMA on the daily. This is the equal weight too. The equal weight has been really giving the better indication of direction versus like the minis or anything like that. The minis look nasty. Like this could still see people sell off, but and that's the thing you got to, I guess, worry about, that people just dump positions thinking the market's going to end. But I'm not really seeing that. Dark pool transactions today on the NAS and the S&P 500 will be interesting. I dare say FX Evolution will cover that today if you want to see that. I don't pay for that particular subscription. I just watch his videos. And yeah, look, this could even recover this vector candle as well on the mini futures. But I suspect that's about as high as we'll get. Maybe one last blow off top. Wait and see. But good bounce off the 200 EMA there. S&P 500. Oh, that is so close to 200. I mean, geez, do you expect it to come back down into that to get another? What was it? Low. That was $8. No, $6. Six and a bit dollars short of tagging the 200 simple. I would prefer to actually see it come down, to be honest, and wick through like the others. Um, typically, yeah, actually, it could do something like this: come down, get close, bounce, come through, and then bounce. It's going to be a tough one. There's going to be by the dippers and shorters all over the place. The market's going to do what it wants to do to screw them all over, basically. Um, typically, it doesn't just bounce off the 200 EMA, like it will go through it. Same thing here. Got close and didn't actually touch it there. So either way, like it's gonna max pain for people that were expecting it to hit that is probably for it to bounce from here. But I don't know. I mean, this is still for the time being. This is still a breakdown of that trend line, which is a pretty decent trend line as well. So 3 touches on that so far. Broke down on the fourth one. What I'd be looking for here is a spike back up, possibly even out into the intersection between these two trend lines. We just extend that out. We could just grind out for a couple of months, a month or so. It's going to be tough. Typically, this period, February, March, in this sort of year, first year of the new president, after an election, all that sort of stuff is typically choppy, Feb, March. But normally there is some upside after that. So I don't know. Look, either way, even if we get a little bounce, it's going to wipe out a lot of people that have gone short in here, thinking this is the end. Tariffs, the market knows they're not like the biggest deal in the world. They've been done many, many times before. It's just a narrative that the media is running with. Um, so yeah, just be careful on that. The mini futures did actually hit the 200 EMA. Didn't tag this trend line though, so that's another one to be careful of. We could actually just keep going a little bit. Volume is dropping off a little bit towards the bottom here too. Again, momentum is sort of reset, but volatility, volatility is still pretty high, so it could still come a little bit further down. Um, equal weight S&P 500 has hit that 200 EMA. That is a proper tag of it and bounce away. It's coming back down at the moment. Just going to have a look at the. Oh no, only a slight drop. Pretty good bounce. Bit of a V-shaped recovery. Yeah, I'm not. If we actually get back above that 178 level on the equal weight, that would actually be quite bullish. Like if we get back above, probably hit the 50 EMA on the 1 hour, pull back and bounce away, that should see us actually head back up to this trend line. That would be a higher low kind of on the longer term timeframes as well. So we go out to the weekly, see what it's looking like. If the weekly holds above that, then wouldn't look like the end of the world on this sort of chart. Global liquidity is still dropping though as well on the weekly. On the daily, it's choppy. It's pulled back a bit. That's not a great sign. But yeah, the 200 EMA is the thing that seems to be holding stuff up at the moment. It's almost a full gap fill too on the equal weight. Like that's a coin flip, but looking at this, max pain would be to actually rip this to the upside. There are so many puts in the system. The options market is just full of them. There is no incentive for that market to go down for the issuers. The issue is, can it overcome that? And if we go into negative gamma, basically the issuers will be forced to hedge their positions, and we could see a flash crash. But in general, like, I still expect IWM, Russell, to come down to this 190 level. I just think that it would make a lot of sense for this market as well to grind up, recover this factor candle here, and then potentially drop later on in the year. Not sure that it's enough of a drop, but at the same time, there is just so many people that are bearish and expecting massive drops. IWM's nearly in recessionary territory. Just want to see what the drop is on this. 6.8. I mean, 5% drops are pretty common. Typically 1 month out from a move like this, and again, credit FX Evolution for raising this. It was done by someone else, not them though. Wherever we've seen, I think at least 1.5% down, 1.5% up, 1.5% down. Typically 1 month later, apart from in a few instances which are important because they are actually pretty major recession periods. 1 month later, it's actually up, and up by a good amount in some cases, like 5 to 10%. So that is something to keep in mind here. Yeah, just IWM's probably the one that's flashing a little bit of caution at the moment. I don't see it going back up to new all-time highs. I think that's a signal that market's potentially done. XLI has tagged as 200 as well, and it's back actually within this little channel here. So that's an interesting one. That's a pretty good support level. It's recovered this vector as well. That supports the theory that this may actually bounce from here. XLY, XLP, great level for a bounce there. Flagged this quite a while ago. Don't know whether it'll get through this trend line. It's not a super strong trend line, but it's got a fair way to run. So I think this bounce could surprise a lot of people, including myself. Like I don't know. And then you move to the XLP versus SPY, and we have broken through. As I pointed out the other day, we broke through this trend line. We're coming back to retest that, and this is what I pointed out the other day. If we retest this and we hold this and we bounce again, then that's a sign that whatever bounce we get over the next few days to a week, that would be a sign that that's a dead cat bounce and we're going further. So be careful of that. This is probably this is a very important chart, not probably. If we come back below that trend line, probably retest down here, that would be a much bigger bounce and is completely possible. Like, you just imagine how many shorters would get wiped out of the system, which Wall Street loves to do that before it actually crashes the market. And we're not seeing, like, apart from tariffs, tariffs aren't as big a deal as what the media is making it. What you want to be watching out for is news of financial market issues or real estate issues. Real estate drives massive dumps, or there's always a real estate component in a massive dump, like recessionary type dump. So be on the lookout for that. And we're not seeing that really at the moment. Financials has pulled back, like they finally had a dip, but I'm not like happy at what I'm saying here because I've just woken up and I haven't actually looked at any news or anything. Global trade concerns. I'm not. The news isn't bearish enough yet. So this could be a precursor. Like the market will, if it's in the news, it's in the price already. So that's something we've got to keep in mind. But it's leaving some vectors up here as well. I don't think the financial market's done yet. It's not looking like it anyway. If we see this actually close and confirm below these wicks, then I'd be a little bit more worried. Possibly, to be honest with you, even the 50 EMA, the 50 EMA's held this up on the daily. That's what I'd be looking at. We could even get a little bit further down on this. It has been a performer when everything else is down, so I'd expect some rotation out of this as it's rotating into other funds, other stocks. So yeah, that'll be an interesting level. But for the time being, like KRE just picked up this trend line here, which I wouldn't call it a super strong trend line, but it's pretty close to that 200 EMA as well. So, and pretty strong buying off that level. Good horizontal level as well. Okay, so this is a good level for a bounce on a lot of different things. And this is the interesting one. So we have, it looks like we're kind of rejecting that trend line there on the equal weight, XLP versus SPY. This is sort of one of the reasons why I was suggesting this one may not be as bad as it looks yet, because we haven't broken this on the equal weight. And the equal weights have been giving us a pretty good idea of what's going on lately. This is probably a little bit more concerning. Equal weight, XLY versus XLP. Yeah, not a super trend line, but that we need to preferably close above that at least tomorrow, if not actually today. And that is entirely possible. There's quite a lot of trades up through here. And again, if we do that, it's actually likely to lead to upside on the markets. Momentum's quite low and looks like it should potentially swing to the high, to the upside, sorry, not to the high. ITB, so ITB is hanging on for dear life. Like this is just a rock climber hanging on by one finger at the moment. But again, good level for that last bounce, just to wipe out some of the bears. XHB, same thing. It's finally hit that level. Like we were waiting for this to hit that level. It was weird that it wasn't while everything else was sort of hitting key levels. So good level for a bounce there. Again, up into the 50, potentially the 200 EMA. for the top of the dead cat bounce. That's what I'm looking for. We could have, complete massive financial stimulus that will lead to, blow off top, but not expecting that based on the dark pools. Just watching where money's going. The Wall Street is preparing the market for a bit of a flogging, but yeah, don't be surprised if we get back up into this range here on semiconductors and a lot of the other stocks. This is just a retest of this breakdown though at the moment. So semis looks like it could come back still. Again, it is going to be a rotationary market. So this doesn't necessarily mean that the stock market in general is done. At least like we could still get decent bounces on Nasdaq and SPY and stuff like that. I just don't see them paying out any puts that are in the actual system at the moment. DJI Gold again. This is this is flashing a warning sign still. So there are still some indicators here. DJI Gold and DJT Gold. DJT Gold did kind of indicate that we were coming down. What it hasn't done though is it hasn't actually come back up and retested this level yet. So it's entirely possible that we actually get a bounce up on this as well. I'll be interested to see what happens if it gets up to this what is now resistance level as well. Okay, that could be a very interesting level. DJT itself is getting bought up. DJI hasn't really hit 200 on that. That would be a better level for DJI. Yeah, it's, don't get me wrong, there are still some signs that we've got some issues in the system, but VIX got above, what was that, 26. It's typically a good buy the dip level. It's just how long that's going to dip for. That's right, it's how long it's going to bounce for. I'm on the computer, guys. So skew came down yesterday. Probably the better indicator is what's happening on the VIX 1 day. It's still coming down, so it's a good level for it though. Marsh. Okay. So yeah, this is still coming down. Markets are, it's flattening out. That's one potential sign at a level where it's not a bad level. Has bounced off here before. So that's a little bit of a coin flip for me. Be interesting to see what happens tomorrow on the markets. DAX. Oops. That's what the DAX should be doing. So DAX is probably signaling there's some potential issues as well, but what you can get to is these things will bounce around up here for a little bit before they actually drop because it looks nasty. Typically, it can still bounce and screw people over. Hang Seng, little bounce on the Hang Seng there. Momentum's pretty squarely to the downside, but I'd only expect it to sort of come back a little bit if it does. Can you guys go upstairs and watch TV for us for a little bit? Anyway, new high on the UK market. That was a wicked candle yesterday. Just going to get. I don't want to rid of that really. yeah, that's where was it at? Very much a doji in there. Um, and this would be quite a bullish close for that, but still not above that trend line. Recovered this vector though. That's an interesting one for the UK market. Showing some potential strength, but very interesting that the markets are kind of all doing their own thing at the moment. Japanese markets more in line with the US. Pretty decent flush there, but geez, it hasn't got back above this level here. And again, especially if you're going to look at this in terms of max pain, I think a jump on this, especially given the volume on this candle and the fact there's a gigantic wick, the volume's higher than back here where that was essentially the bottom, at least the temporary bottom. Kind of expect something similar. Bounce. Again, doesn't have to make new all-time highs or anything. It may come up into potentially test these all-time highs or the high here. I don't think that's an all-time high. Oh no, maybe it was. Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe it was. Anyway, so that would wipe out a lot of shorters as well. So Japanese market, US market, both look like they want to bounce from here. In my opinion, PLT pulling back a little bit. Again, that coming back into this level, close that gap a bit. Wouldn't surprise me. Momentum's coming down from a pretty high level too. I still think like TLT will be a good buy on the dips if you're looking at a 2-year hold or so. High yield junk got a bit of a bounce as well. Again, that was suggesting that this isn't necessarily a massive sell-off. LQDIF. Okay, that's very interesting. Big bounce off that trend line. That's pretty good confluence for a bounce here. It opened really low too. Yeah, this chart to me suggests we are going to go like this, potentially fall off from there. Whether we actually break through and go up to reclaim these vectors before we drop, I have to wait and see, but it's going to get interesting around May, I can tell you. It potentially even happen in April in terms of whether we break out and go on another run or whether we just sell off. And everyone will be looking at selling May and go away. If that happens, that could get nasty. Great level for a bounce on the 2-year. Same on the 10-year. Interesting to see these things put in a head and shoulders. If that happens, that's probably going to suggest there's something major wrong. But yeah, the bond market is suggesting that there is some underlying issues. It's just we're not fully seeing it capitulate yet. Copper sideways, and not a bad level for copper to bounce from. And it's only done one leg of its sort of run as well. So typically you'd expect, if this is going to be a proper run, it's one leg to there. Second leg went a bit further. Third leg, we might just get up, recover this vector candle, and then drop away. That's something to be on the lookout for. If we blast through that, then actually the bull run may last a little bit longer. Gold, and that's an interesting one. I didn't actually get a chance to buy back into that yesterday. Not super interested in it. Not at these levels. What happens up here will be interesting. I think we could just tag that 3,000 level on a, like if we have an upside market, tag the 3,000 and then pull back pretty hard. Interesting one on the Australian market though. Not interested in it for a 5% move. Silver's probably a better buy, but again, just actually silver is got a better setup on it, better BBWP and momentum setup versus gold. Ooh, it's an interesting one on oil too. So oil putting in a big hanging man like this right off these lows in here, suggesting we could be close to a bottom. Dixie's pulling back pretty hard. It is hitting a level it could bounce from though, just in terms of measured moves. That's one to keep in mind. Hasn't hit the 200 EMA. That'd be interesting if it's 200 EMA. Japanese yen's probably doing majority of the damage. Oh no, euro. Euro's finally breaking out. Okay. Dixie may have some more downside to come. Global liquidity, yeah, it's still pulling back, but it is holding this trend line, so that could be a good sign. If global liquidity goes up as the market is bouncing, then support for a decent bounce. Mag 7 has hit the 200 EMA. Little bounce there. This trend line, don't know that it'll provide too much resistance, but getting back above that, I'd be more confident in the bounce. Tesla, I mean, hasn't closed the gap, but it's gotten pretty close. Close enough to freak a lot of people out. At the same time, though, it's not, at this stage, it isn't closing above that 200 EMA. So I think that's an important one to close above. Yeah. Trend is down at the moment. But they are bouncing. Nvidia bouncing as well. Nvidia looks like it's got phantom trend line in here. Not super convinced by this on Nvidia, but if everything else bounces, it potentially will. At the same time, you know, if this chops down into this level and then bounces, that would support a decent market rally. Well, Google hasn't quite hit the level I would like it at. That's a pretty bullish candle at the moment, though. Coming off a momentum switch, high volatility. Google back up into this resistance is entirely possible, and I'd say probably likely. Microsoft, I don't know what the hell that trend line's doing there, but holding it for the time being. Could also put that trend line here, and if it breaks back through that, then not a bad time for a bounce. Geez, it actually tagged this higher here before it bounced, so went a little bit below the buy box, but I think that is a good level for a buy on Microsoft. Take profit. I'd be sitting at around 413. Don't know that it'll actually get up into here. I'd just vector candle recovery is what I'd be looking at. RK, bounce off the bottom of this channel. Apple holding that horizontal line. 3M's coming back a bit. I mean, I think the ones that have been running while everything else has been dumping, they're the ones that are going to get punished over the next week if everything does bounce, or the rest of the stuff does bounce. Amazon, great level for a bounce. Meta, bounced off that bottom trend line. Great level for a bounce again. Got a nice vector candle sitting at the high there. That would just wipe out so many shorters. And you're going to get a lot of FOMO retail coming in if you're getting back up to those levels too. Retail is not buying at the moment. AMD is still below that trend line. That's not a great sign. Broadcom, though, that's a great level for a bounce on Broadcom. SMCI, yeah, it's kind of no man's land for me. ASML, yeah. CSM, I mean, they announced big investment in the US. Realistically, this is looking not great, but a bounce up into this vector candle is possible. The other thing is we've got, excuse me, big gap up at the top there. So, and some of these semis have been hammered, so we could get a decent bounce on them. Oh, Stellantis. I mean, that to me is bounced off that previous low. That to me is signaling that, yeah, but the economy's just, it's on a knife edge at the moment. Ford, same deal. Aussie market, good bounce. Like above that support level, actually support resistance. A lot of the markets have been hammered pretty hard. You typically get a bounce. You go into free fall, everyone freaks out, goes bare, then they bounce. ETH BTC longs, people are still going nuts on the ETH BTC longs. That just blows my mind. BTC longs, they're still piling into that. There's a lot of people buying the dip here on BTC. So that to me suggests that we still, we might be close to the bottom here. In fact, they're piling in even though it's a high level. And the amount of buying they had around that, the bottom there, that's a pretty good indication that what's going on. Services PMI will be an interesting one. We've got non-farm payrolls Friday as well. They'll potentially move the market. And the unemployment rate as well. So if the unemployment rate jumps, I'd actually expect the market to keep going up a little bit. because it means the Fed has an excuse to cut again. So TLT will go up at that stage as well, but that's just depends what he says as well. So it's going to be a tough day on Friday, I think, for US market. All right, over to Bitcoin. Hitting the top of this range again. Not a bad buy signal there. Volatility is increasing. Pull back into these vectors here over the next hour or two wouldn't surprise me. Don't know that it'll break through the 800 EMA or the 1 hour 200 yet. But this is a pretty good turnaround. This is actually a smooth like 11 or 12 EMA, but it's similar to 13 EMA. The fact that that's crossed the 50, we are actually outside the linear regression channel. That's typically a good sign. So we may not necessarily pull straight back down into these levels, but it did almost the exact same thing over here before that pump. Just didn't come down with as much effort. Yeah, I mean that's a pretty bullish sign. What have we recovered? We've basically recovered this vector. There's probably a bit more to go there. It's a big vector up here at 93, but I actually think that Bitcoin's got another couple of days up in it, just like the rest of the market. A lot of people going short on it. Let's just go into. I want to do ETH versus BTC. Look at this. There's still people going nuts on this chart for long in it. Just been hammered. It might happen. Ethereum may jump relative to BTC, and look, it's swiped the lows. That's that would be max pain for a lot of people that were trying to long ETH, but also a lot of people trying to short ETH. If ETH jumps, recovers this vector candle, even pushes into the value area low there, recovers this vector candle, a lot of people are going to miss out on that pump. But again, probably dead cat bounce. I could be wrong. We could go to a new all-time high in the market just to blow everyone away. But yeah, Bitcoin's not a bad long. The other reason I say that is we're bouncing. We're basically rejecting this breakdown again. We've still got a lot of overhead resistance to get through. So you've got to be careful of how high we bounce, but not a bad buy level for at least a short-term gain on Bitcoin. This is the chart though. Like it's going to be key for me what happens at this trend line here. I think if the market goes bullish for a couple of days, Bitcoin should actually run up and at least test that level. If it goes bullish for a month, then Bitcoin's going to be testing this top trend line here. And probably some new highs potentially around that mid-March, which will be very interesting. Yeah, pretty good level for a bounce on Bitcoin here. Litecoin, it had a pretty decent bounce, recovered a bit of this vector candle here. What was there for? Could actually get to a new local high on Litecoin. There is still rumors about Litecoin getting an ETF as well. So this is a pretty big channel. If we break above this channel, Litecoin could go back to some pretty decent levels. It's not a given by any means, and to be honest with you, momentum is to the downside on Litecoin at the moment. So it may even come back in here a little bit more into the 80s, recover some of that wick first. And if it does that, look, does it have enough strength? Does the market have enough strength in it to get it out to another high? I'll have to wait and see. Sol, again, good level for a bounce here, and this is what you can get with these sort of candles. That's just wiping people out. It's getting rid of all the longs before, or as many longs as possible before it actually grinds to the upside. I think this is geared up for a bit more upside yet. XRP looking stronger than the others even. Pretty well recovered all that. Needs to break above this trend line, but again, it should do that. Wow, Sui. Sui's recovered this vector here. Didn't tap into this one, but that's won't be as many vectors in there on the smaller time frames. Swept this low though, and that's important. Sweep that low, big buying off it. Sui's actually looking good for a decent run as well. By decent run, I mean like a decent bounce. Whether we go to new all-time highs, I'm still reluctant to suggest that. A couple of the AI ones are doing okay today as well, but a lot of them still sitting. That's potentially forming a base, but oh man, that's ugly. Just don't know that they've got the narrative at the moment. Freaking grass, wow. Grass seems to have the narrative. People are liking it anyway. Carve, not so much. It's unfortunate. AI fun. Sui AI. Dang, these have wrecked a lot of people. Oh. Yeah. I mean, if the market bounces and these things bounce, there's the highest gammas in them. Yeah. What have we got in gaming? Shrapnel and bites getting a little bit, but you can see what that looks like. 1.5% candle looks like it's nothing. But yeah, I do expect if the market does bounce and these are recovered at the wick of that vector as well, they could go on a pretty decent run. Like shrapnel up into 1.8 cents. A pretty decent move for me. That's a 3x move. Bites, same sort of deal. Like bites probably not 3x. You'd have to get up into $5 though. Could be a 2x on bites. A couple of decent targets up here though as well. So Theo. That's basically an all-time low. Hit on Dio. Not a bad game, this one. Just sector's been smashed. Haven't heard much from IMX or many people talking about it in this cycle either. I guarantee they're working away still. And even that hit a new all-time low. Beam. Wow. All right. Wonder if my nodes are going to be worth anything. Oh. Okay, so key levels for me on Bitcoin. In summary, it looks like we're set for a bounce. Bitcoin, I'd at least expect to hit the point of control around 96.5. But I actually have a feeling we could get one last spike up into, I don't know. It depends if the bounce on the US market is just a couple of days or not, just to wipe out the shorters. And then it's a dead cat bounce and it rips to the downside. So there's two targets. One is get back into this level, maybe value area high, so 98.7, even into the 99s. There is a fair bit of liquidity up around 100, and then pull back down. That I think is probably the more likely scenario. You can see here it's just, and even just while I've been talking, that's gone nuts. So looks like it's going to try and drag as much liquidity out as possible. As you can see here, there is a fair bit just above 95. We go back out to the month. There's a fair chunk up here. If it wants it, I don't think you'll get many shorters up around these levels, so that would be a really good time for it to pull back. But yeah, it looks like we're good for a decent bounce here. It's key level 109, but at least up into that. Where are we? Even 100k would be that 98k level. Yeah, could stop there. I don't know if it will though. If the market goes on a little run. Sentiment as well. So big guys are still buying in. That's a good sign. Retail's still freaking out. That's also a good sign. That's pretty decent reset level on retail as well. And I think it'll take a couple of days for them to turn around. So yeah, I think we're getting close. Well, I think we've actually hit the bottom. We could get a bit of chop over 1 or 2 days and then actually make a run towards Friday, or make a run on Friday. I haven't actually logged into these yet. Just quickly have a look at them. Yeah, big dark pool and a run up. Still not huge numbers though. We're still not seeing numbers that are what we were getting across the highs, but it does support a decent run. And we broke through that level pretty quickly too. This was the suggestion. Mara and Coinbase were the ones that were staying sideways while the market was dumping, basically. We had a pretty decent trade at the low there. So yeah, dark pool and like the big traders, they know what's going on. They don't make these trades to lose money, that's for sure. Very rarely they would lose money on them. So yeah, that's kind of supporting the fact that we probably will go up a little bit more. I suspect XLP is probably going to decent trade on it. Yeah, at the highs. So consumer staples pulling back a little bit, as we saw anyway, but just want to see what XLY is doing. Yeah, decent sweep below there. And a move up. So consumer discretionary is getting a bit off the lows there. Just going to do XLF. We noticed this yesterday. No massive bid in there. Lots of trade clustering there, which is a good sign. But for this to bounce and find some resistance and then pull back again, again, it would kind of support the idea that the market's got a dead cat bounce in it yet, at least. At least. CoinAnk, just took out that big trade in there. Refresh that. Yeah, I mean, it's leaving behind quite a bit, but at this stage, pretty decent bounce. We put in a higher low too. People will be looking at that. Good. Spot CBD as well. I think I pointed this out yesterday that spots seem to be moving up. Oh no, I was just looking at that. Anyway, this is a good uptick in the CBD on spot. Futures was a bit slow on it, which is a little bit surprising, but so it looks like there's still a lot of shorters in the system in futures, so that can drive more upside as well. Like people were trying to short it through this little pump here, but it looks like we've potentially found that little bottom for the time being. It's another test of that bull market support trend line though on the total versus staples, and that's still the important level for me. Just go and have a quick look at the liquidation map. This is interesting. So the 1 day, there is actually a lot of shorts, a lot of longs in the system. So I don't know how long we'll leave that there. It's not as many people shorting it as I thought, unless it's just because they all got wiped out today. 7 day though is a bit more even, so that lends itself to upside. Hey, like imagine it getting into the 102.5. It's going to suck a lot of people in long. But yeah, generally bullish upside. Mentioned it yesterday that those sort of pump and dumps can lead to grind up, and it looks like that's potentially what we've got on the cards. So be careful though. News plays and all the like Powell talking on Friday and the economic data that's coming out. News is going to be a trigger that they use to dump markets. Oh, excuse me. So 1 foot out the door. Probably stop losses rather than hedges for me, but that's where I'm at.